Man, Black Panther 2 came out fast. A lot more cameos in this one, too. Better than the second one, not as good as the first one, not as good as Guardians 2 or Black Panther more recently. I'll do a ranking thing later in the week. I won't tell you who lives or who dies or what any of the big stuff is, but if I don't at least vaguely allude to some plot stuff, there's not much point in doing a review. So if you only showed up to get the star rating and you're going to be a big baby about a slip detail like, hey, I didn't want to know ahead of time there was a spaceship in this movie, fine, here you go. Now everyone who's not a big baby can join me after the anachronistic end of broadcast card. Okay, so Avengers Infinity War sets out to answer the question of how you make a cohesive, satisfying movie out of the first half of a two-part send-off for the original iteration of the team-up model that cemented the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the modern blockbuster gold standard, but that said gold standard has already kind of started to outgrow. It's only been a decade since the 4 or 5 smaller solo movies, then a big team-up movie model was this brand new concept that no one was even sure would work, since nobody since Universal back in the 40s had even tried to make a shared universe happen, but now the idea of it has been so firmly entrenched in the popular imagination that the characters teaming up and popping in and out of each other's movies now feels normal and completely expected. I mean, sure, Hulk can be part of Thor 3, which can be a space comedy now, and Iron Man can be in Spider-Man, and Captain America 3 can be a better Avengers 2 than the actual Avengers 2, and Black Panther can really be more of an ensemble Afrofuturist sci-fi fantasy epic set in Wakanda than just a Black Panther movie. So, do we really need to keep building to these Avengers team-ups, and if so, how do they keep raising the bar? Now, Age of Ultron tried to answer that question with, what if we get all gloomy and self-serious and forget that these are primarily movies for 7-year-olds and you're supposed to be having fun to mixed results, but hey, Christopher Nolan wannabeism died a hard death in this genre. Infinity War's approach is to basically harken back to Avengers 1 and say, okay, so that, but more. More fireworks, more jokes, more scope, more scale, more characters, more cameos, more callbacks, bigger canvas, bigger stakes, bigger emotions, and a barn burner of an are you even shitting me finale that only a film secure in the knowledge that its immediate sequel was already mostly through shooting and everyone was still going to go see it no matter what anyway would even attempt to do, and probably even then shouldn't. The end result is something very much like a superhero It's a Mad World or Cannonball Run to the original Avengers superhero Rat Pack caper, in which the plot is at once labyrinthine and portentous yet also superfluous and utterly beside the point. The biggest and baddest of the big bad guys yet wants to do the big bad thing. He needs to collect several pieces of magic stuff to do it. Said magic stuff has been encountered by and sort of connects the various component memberships of the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther's crew in Wakanda, and the unaffiliated players like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange to one another in one way or another, so all the good guys break off into different teamed-up formations, ostensibly to fight the bad guy and or prevent the bad thing from happening, but really to create scenarios where we get to see who would win in a fight between Person A and Person B, or what Person C will talk about when they finally meet Person D for the first time. And it works because that's what's always been the secret to the good Marvel movies this whole time. All the continuity stuff only feels like it's necessary, but it really only matters as much as you want it to. So if you're a sad dork who actually cares about dumb lore nonsense, like me for example, it's there, it all lines up, and you can have fun with it if that's your definition of fun. But if you're a psychologically healthy person who has friends or a life and thus haven't been keeping track of where all the magic rocks are and all the other stupid nerd bullshit between movies, you can still just walk right in because it's not really that important, and what matters is the characters, the personalities, and all the dramatic narrative stuff. The other big reason this one works, though, shockingly, is Thanos. Yes, believe it or not, it has been worth the wait for him to get up out of the damn chair and do stuff, and he's really kind of the star of the movie. With a handful of exceptions, which, yes, would be spoilers, it's pretty clear early on that most of the good guys' big payoffs, denouements, and moments of closure are yet to come either in the next one or when they go back to their solo movies. So with the heroes spending most of the film in reactive mode, hustling from place to place, fighting, running, making plans, failing, and just kind of getting their asses kicked from one end of the galaxy to another, this is kind of a downer in between all the jokes. So in many respects, the villain is the one driving the action and is really the guy at the center of things. And for a change, the usually bullshit hype that the villain is the focus this time is really made to pay off here. You see, without spoiling, the fiendishly clever trick is that Thanos gets a new origin story that is very different from the one comic fans may have been expecting, but serves to frame him as something like the most extreme version possible of the old idea that the best bad guy might be one who's sure that he's the good guy. Thanos is a madman, and unlike Loki or Killmonger or whoever, his goals aren't really relatable or sympathetic in any way, but there's a clearly defined logic behind the really awful thing he's trying to accomplish that lets Josh Brolin take his performance to some really fascinating places. He's seriously good here, even under all the silly purple alien motion capture. It might honestly be one of the better performances Brolin has given in a recent movie, and in some respects you could almost see Thanos and the big reveal of what he's apparently been trying to accomplish this whole time as an absurdist caricature of the whole archetype of somber, suffering, self-righteous heroes that our media has been drowning in of late. You know, all of these stoic, gravely serious daddy figures so burdened by the terrible psychic weight of what must be done that only they can thanklessly bear on our behalf. And it's really something to see this big lumpy alien stomping around with his golden armor and silly magic glove full of universe-ending Lucky Charms pieces being underplayed as a soft-spoken, contemplative sociopath. It's really weird and cool. Now, unfortunately, not all of it is quite that aces. Like a lot of movies with built-in to-be-continued settings, it's leaning really hard on letting a gangbusters finish prop up a mildly shaky middle stretch. Unfortunately, the repeated correct decision to not force the other films in between these to stop cold for dumb expository bullshit about magic space rocks mean that eventually parts of this one have to stop cold for dumb expository bullshit about magic space rocks, and there just doesn't seem to be a way to make the Infinity Stones themselves as interesting as your one wrong friend who still thinks Thor: The Dark World is one of the good movies thinks they're supposed to be. It's also kind of odd to realize that the narrative decides, you have to do the thing to stop him from getting the stone. No, doing that thing will cause great emotional pain to me personally, is such a strong beat that it can be repeated 4 or 5 times in a row in different variations, but I suspect the problem is less the diminishing returns of the beat itself and more that these sorts of moral dilemmas are directly proportionate to how much we care about the characters in question they're being imposed on. So in some cases it's like, holy shit, I can't believe they're not paying that off in their own movie, versus I do not think anyone cares about as much as the movie thinks someone out there must in other cases. But your mileage may well vary in that case, and it's entirely possible that Infinity War is the ultimate example of a blockbuster so absurdly refined and well polished that any reaction other than basic admiration for the solid spectacle craftsmanship on display is going to be wholly contingent on which characters and pieces making up the whole are your favorites and whether you feel serviced or shortchanged. Speaking for myself, there's a few people I was hoping to see more of that I hope will have more presence in the next one. There's others with more time than they maybe deserve from my vantage point. I could have watched an entire movie just about the Guardians reacting to the mere existence of Thor, and I was sorely, sorely tempted to add another entire half star to this review entirely because of a single character cameo that I never expected to see again that nearly made me jump out of my goddamn seat, even though it makes exactly zero sense for them to be there, have the information they do, or serve the function that they serve. I don't care, I'm just glad they're back. So yeah, Infinity War. Don't pretend there was even a chance anyone wasn't eventually going to go see it, but yes, they've still got it, and without spoiling, it feels like the stage is very much set for it to become something else entirely in the very near future. So here's to another decade of these, maybe. 3.5 stars, I had a lot of fun with it.